Welcome in to another episode of the Women's Basketball Now podcast here on the Hoop Central YouTube channel. This is Hamilton Neal joining you as always. We thank you, the viewers, for taking the time as well. Really excited for this episode as we are for every single episode of Women's Basketball Now because we're talking about something different on every single show. There's so much going on in women's college basketball even though the off-season is here because we have transfer portal stuff going on. In our last show we talked about the Basketball Hall of Fame Women's Showcase. And here today we're talking about espnW and their recruiting rankings. They've updated them for the class of 2023 and 2024. They've also released their first rankings for the class of 2025, and that's something that we're going to talk about on our next episode of Women's Basketball Now. But here today we're focusing on 2023 and 2024, as both of those rankings have expanded. 2023 is now a top 100. 2024 is now a top 60. And we're going to look at some players that have rose up the ranks, some that have fallen as well. But first I want to look at 2023 and the class rankings there. Obviously we have links in the description box for the full rankings where you can go to espn.com and find these. We're going to just go over a couple players that really made major rises up the rankings and then some that fell, some that kind of stayed the same. So first we're going to look at Hannah Hidalgo at point guard. 5'6" out of Paul VI Catholic, rose to number 5 from number 18. And when we're talking about recruiting rankings and whenever they're updated, any source, whether it be ESPN, ASGR, Blue Star, Prospects Nation, when you have a player going up 13 spots, they're doing something really good. They've done something right. And Hidalgo is a player that we always knew was really good, but was seen as more of a 4-star player around this time a year ago, and now has risen to not just 5-star status, but one of the best players in the country. And the reason that she is where she is right now, number 5 in these rankings, is because of her ability to not only have an offensive impact at a major degree, but also have a big defensive impact as well. She gets into the passing lanes. She's very active on that side of the basketball, and that's something that you don't see with every elite recruit. You expect them to offensively have it. You expect them to knock down shots, make plays in the lanes, but defensively, there is a learning curve, and there are for all players, including Hannah Hidalgo, but she's gotten better over time on that side. She is very, very pesky on that side. Again, gets in the passing lanes. When you're playing her, it's not easy when she's on the defensive end. So her impact on that side of the ball is really a big reason why she's at number 5. But on the offensive end, knockdown three-point shooter, one of the best in the class, sharp ball handling ability. She's a very good playmaker off the bounce. And you see all of the top programs in the country recruiting her. You know, Rutgers is right there as a school that's been on her a little bit. UConn is a school that's had some interest. Obviously, top 25 programs up and down the line have been lining up to try to get at the top of her priority list. And it's going to be interesting to see, as she starts to narrow things down, how many programs are on her. Because every major conference is involved with her right now. So I'm expecting to see a list cut probably at some point, maybe this summer going into this fall. Again, for 2023 recruits that are not committed, it's going to be very important to establish favorites at this point because next fall they're going to be on college campuses. They're going into their senior season. So list cuts, if they're not there already, will probably be there in the very near future. So for her, it's just going to be about continuing to develop, play this last AAU season, and then focus on recruiting. Because after AAU ball wraps up, then that's when recruiting becomes very intense. And if you're uncommitted still going into your senior season, schools are going to be out watching you more than they would be. So one of the best players in the country, someone we followed here at Hoop Central for quite a while, and somebody that I always felt was underranked in 2023. Someone like Chloe Clardy is still very underranked, I think, in 2023. She's still at the 4-star line. I think she is the caliber of a 5-star player, but hasn't had quite the rise that Hannah Hidalgo has had because of her two-way ability. Again, it's offense and it's defense. She brings both at 100% effort, and that's why you see her at number 18 to number 5. So very excited to see how she continues to develop. Same thing with Aalyah Del Rosario, a player that when 2023 rankings came out was right there in the top 10. And as a player that kind of fell off the map a little bit. Someone that needed some time to develop and get better over time. She has risen from number 13 to number 8. Now again, she was never at a low ranking in this class. She was always top 15, top 20 player, but was not playing at that top 10 type of level until she transferred to the Webb School in Tennessee. She's played a national schedule against best top-level teams in the country, and that's allowed her to get better because she always had the size and the tangible things at 6'6", but she's starting to unlock her intangible skills. She's starting to unlock everything within her game, not just playing with that physical presence inside, which we know she has that, but she's strong on the glass. She has improved her rebounding skills. She can finish with her back to the basket, obviously, with either hand. Very skilled there. When you have a post player that can finish with the left or the right, it's just a no-brainer to feed the ball to them time and time again down the floor. Now, the biggest thing in her game, the biggest thing that she's improved, and it's the biggest learning curve for all post players, is the face-up game, the jump shot. When you can unlock that, you go from good to great very, very quickly. And she's emerging with her face-up game. Not quite a three-point shooter yet, but is really, really good from the mid-range. That little 15-foot jump shot, she's getting that down and doing it on a consistent basis. So when espnW updates these rankings again, whenever that might be, she could push for a top 5 ranking. But right now she's just outside the top 5, inside the top 10 at number 8. And I think that's a good spot for her right now. I think she's ranked correctly in this class. And again, you can go look at the full rankings on ESPN.com, but I think 13 to 8, that's a nice little bump up because of the improvements that she has made. And when you look at her recruiting, you have some of the best programs in the country on her right now. A program that was mentioned very early on was UConn. They have not been mentioned here quite as much, but it would make sense for them to go after her because they're not in the mix for Bria Cunningham in 2023. They just might miss out on Madison Booker, who we're going to talk about a little bit later. And maybe getting an offer out to Del Rosario could be a good idea because they need someone to go along with Ice Brady in the future that's going to bring consistent post play for them. Because when Dorka Juhas goes out, and eventually when Aalyah Edwards goes out a few years from now, you're going to need some reinforcements in the post. And on top of UConn's interest, wherever that might be at this point, North Carolina, South Carolina, Duke, Miami, Auburn, NC State, Texas A&M, Arizona, Tennessee, and LSU are just some of the other schools on her right now. Some of the best programs in the nation. And again, list cuts should be coming soon, recruiting much more of a focus for players after AAU than it is during AAU. During AAU is when coaches are going to be coming out to watch and to extend offers. But players really don't have time to think about it because they're playing a game, if not every day, every other day, every couple of days, until the AAU season is over, depending on how far you advance. So after the season is when players are going to really start to narrow their list. So I don't expect anything immediate. I expect something after the AAU season, maybe sometime during the summer, June, July, something like that. So definitely keep your eye on Aalyah Del Rosario, especially if you're a UConn fan, because UConn needs a post player in this class, I feel, to go along with their guards, Ashlyn Shade and KK Arnold. They're great in the backcourt. They're good there, but they need someone in the post to come in, and maybe she's that player. We'll have to wait and see, but plenty of competition and a lot of other good ACC, SEC, Pac-12 schools involved there as well. So those are two players that espnW really focused on as big risers that have made huge improvements, and we just wanted to focus on those two as well. Some other players that had some movement, you had Bria Cunningham going to number 10 from number 4, was and is still highly touted here in this 2023 class, but is no longer seen as the best post player because of the emergence of the mid-range shot and all of the improvements that Del Rosario has made. She's kind of leaped Cunningham in development. And again, with Cunningham, she's always had great physicality in the post, but needs to improve her face-up game. Running the floor is something as well that she needs to continue to get better with, something that Del Rosario has clearly gotten better with. So the drop from 4 to 10, not as surprising given just the status of her game right now. She has focused on recruiting a little bit more than other players in this 2023 class because of the fact that schools were coming for home visits in the spring. She's cut her list down to top 6, 7, a lot of Pac-12 schools in there, and UConn's not included there. So that's why I mentioned maybe they should turn up the heat on Del Rosario because they're not in the mix anymore with Cunningham. So she took a drop there, 6 spots. Ashlyn Shade, KK Arnold staying basically right where they were. Ashlyn Shade at number 6 in these rankings, KK Arnold number 7. Those two were right there in the top 10, and up a spot, down a spot. That's what a lot of these players are going through in these rankings. So those two not moving too much from where they were last time. Madison Booker went from inside the top 10 to now at number 15. And again, her recruitment has been pretty quiet of late, but we've heard about Mississippi State as the in-state school, probably the favorite at this point. You got Texas, Oregon, Louisville's been there, but I don't expect them to be as much of a factor because of Sam Purcell's move from Louisville to Mississippi State. And then there's UConn. Everyone's asked, what are UConn's chances with Madison Booker? I actually had someone on Twitter recently ask me, do you think now that they're out of the mix for Cunningham, do they pick it up with Booker? I think you have to. Even though Booker is not that true post player, they play different positions. Booker is physical, can get inside a little bit, is not a post-up player by any stretch. She plays the wing spot, but again is physical enough to play on the inside and get in there and also play some outside. So I think if you're UConn, you really focus on Booker and Del Rosario. And again, she has a lot of other schools on her though, so it's going to be high level of competition. I would again tab Mississippi State as the current favorite. And then you have Montea Dew, a player at number 9 inside the top 10, committed to Arizona. I really like her. And then some players under the radar that I think are still underranked. I mentioned Chloe Clardy is inside the top 50, but I think is still underranked. Jordy Griggs is at number 86, 6'1" wing. Right above her is Chloe Briggs at number 77, 5'10" guard. Always been a big fan of her game. Always liked what she brings to the table. She brings that explosiveness. Going inside, she's a knockdown outside shooter. Is very similar to that of Olivia Olson in the 2024 class. Has a lot of size at the lead guard spot, but can also play off ball. So I see some Sabrina Ionescu-like qualities within her game. Again, not saying that she is Sabrina or will be Sabrina, but just with her size, her ability to play off ball a little bit, I see some of Sabrina Ionescu in Chloe Briggs, and is definitely under the radar. I think is being overlooked by a lot of programs right now. And then Donovan Hunter, 5'11" guard, just inside these rankings at number 98 out of Oregon State, committed to the Beavers program, really good player as well. Again, the thing about this 2023 class is that you have guard heavy, wing heavy rankings here. Again, some post players up there at the top like Del Rosario and Cunningham are really good, but it's a lot of guards and a lot of wings. And the top 5, in fact, the top 3 players out of 5 in these rankings are guards. Michaela Williams, Juju Watkins, and Jaden Donovan. So you just see right there how skilled the backcourt players are here in this class, which Michaela Williams is being heavily recruited by LSU. UConn is rumored to be in the mix, but I really don't feel like they're at the top of her list right now. Juju Watkins, West Coast prospect, has a lot of the Pac-12 schools on her. I wouldn't be surprised to see UCLA as the school that maybe would land her. Jaden Donovan, again, a lot of the top-level programs recruiting her also. So the 2023 class is extremely strong. 2024 class is as well. And these rankings have expanded from 25 to 60. And at the top is Joyce Edwards, 6'2" forward out of South Carolina. Jaloni Cambridge, 5'6" point guard, is at number 2. And 3, 4, and 5, you have Olivia Olson, 6' point guard, Kendall Dudley, 6'1" wing, and Sarah Strong, 6'2" forward out of North Carolina. Really great top 5. I really wouldn't argue with the order of those 5 players, because I do feel like Cambridge has a slight edge over Olson at this point, just with her motor, just with her gear. But Olson is a knockdown outside shooter, and is someone that, again, has that size, a lot more size than Cambridge. And you have right now Notre Dame, Oregon, Oregon State, Iowa State, UConn on her, just to name a few. And again, just with her size at the lead guard spot, we kind of talked about this with Chloe Briggs and some other players, you can do a little bit more. Again, we see Paige Beckers as a 5'11" point guard. We see Caitlin Clark playing lead guard, at 5'11", 5'10", 6 foot. We see these bigger point guards now. Vina Westbrook, when she was coming out, you see them have the ability to just rise up immediately with the jump shot. That's why they're all so good from the perimeter, but also put their head down and get to the rim. But they're also good passers. And Olivia Olson is balanced within her game, but is a strong scorer. I think is a score-first type of point guard. And Cambridge has that balance, a little bit more of that balance. But I wouldn't argue with Edwards at number 1. She is very physical, very imposing on the inside, has wing-like skills at the 4 spot. I think she is really a stretch 4 type of player. And then you look at a player like Sarah Strong, very physical on the inside. Some have made comparisons to Anissa Morrow out of DePaul. Very inside-focused player. Really doesn't have the jump shot, but she really doesn't need it with her game right now. I mean, if she finds that and she expands, then she's yet that much more dangerous. But her physicality at 6'2" is off the charts and is right up there with Edwards, I think, as a 4 player in this class. So that's the top 5. And then you have a couple of players making rises, big rises, from unranked to in the top 30. And 2 cases of that are with Kate Koval and Morgan Cheli. And these are the 2 players in 2024 that ESPN in their article focused on. Kate Koval, 6'5" post, unranked to number 21 here in this class. Highly skilled inside, very slim in the post. Not quite as physical as a Joyce Edwards or as a Sarah Strong that has a lot more size than those 2 players do. Capable passer, has good court vision, runs the floor well up and down, one of the quicker post players in this class, and is improving as an outside shooter. And that's why you have schools like UConn, Notre Dame, Maryland, Stanford, South Carolina, Oregon, Louisville recruiting. It's because you rarely find that size with that ability to shoot from the outside, to play inside, to run the floor, to pass, to rebound consistently. She has a complete package. It's as complete a package for a post player as you have here for a true 5 player. Now we're talking about Edwards and Strong. Those are 4 players. Those are forwards. Playing the post position, I don't think you find many players better in this class than Kate Koval. And then Morgan Cheli, 6'2" guard, went to number 28 from unranked. So again, like Kate Koval, really impressed people during the high school season, during this AAU season. She's been great. She brings that ability to get to the rim well. She has a good pull-up jumper from the mid-range and from 3. Creates space well. Again, playing that off-guard position, you have to have that ability. She's a good rebounder as well for the guard spot, and I think that's a trait that the schools really like, is that she's willing to go get the boards, and she can do that a little bit more consistently than other players. And again, out on the West Coast at Archbishop Midi, there's a long lineage of good players coming out of there. Haley Jones most recently, star at Stanford. California is highly competitive, and you put up big numbers in that state, you're going to get recruited by some of the best programs in the country. And you have Stanford, UCLA, and State there, obviously, 2 of the best recruiters in the country, not just in the Pac-12. So really excited to see the growth that those 2 players make over time. And that's just a look at some of the 2023 rankings, some of the 2024 rankings. Again, in the description, you have links to where you can find both of these 4 rankings. Again, it's the top 100 for 2023 and the top 60 for 2024. So again, that's all the time we have here in this all-new video from Hoop Central. Continue to keep it locked here on the channel for more Women's Basketball Now podcasts. And our next show will have a complete look at the class of 2025 and the first ESPN rankings there. This is Hamilton Neal signing off for now, but I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.